About 5 years ago, I was employed to a security company called Eagle's Eye as an unarmed security guard. For some strange reason, the company always seems to be picking up clients who own abandoned properties right across the country. One evening in early spring of 2018, I got a call from the duty manager to cover a shift for a coworker who had fallen ill that day and wasn't able to make it in. Usually, my duties would have me located at various fancy restaurants in town because they said I was one of their best workers and they admired my work ethics, and for this very same reason I couldn't say no, even though it was my day off. Honestly, I thought of 100 excuses to not go, but the boss sounded desperate, and I would feel really bad not helping him out after their kindness to me, so I said yes. I ended the call, immediately took a shower, and started getting dressed, but right at that moment, the reality hit me hard. The shift I was asked to cover was at the abandoned Dragon Hotel. The truth is I'm not usually easily scared, but I've heard so many spooky stories about that hotel that I couldn't help but feel a bit edgy. As I pondered over my situation, I was jolted back to reality by the sound of a horn honking outside my apartment. It was the company's transport van, with my supervisor gazing over his eyeglass through the window. Luckily, I was just grabbing my final piece of work gear to put in my bag, so I slipped through the door and then took my seat in the front, beside my supervisor, who was the lone passenger in the vehicle. The Dragon Hotel was down north, some 6 miles out of town, so we took Highway 23 to expedite our travel time. But after driving for about 10 minutes, we came upon a huge pile-up of traffic, which we later found out was a result of some drunk guy flipping his car over on the top. We waited for a good 30 minutes before we were able to move again, but it gave me some time to pull myself together and to get rid of the slightly nervous feeling I had. In about another 30 minutes, we pulled off the highway, and all the houses and buildings started disappearing in the distance behind us. The lonely terrain greeted us shortly after, as we slowly pulled up to the huge sign of the Dragon Hotel. As I stepped out of the vehicle and headed towards the entrance, I was totally surprised by what I saw. It was nothing like I had expected. I was drawn aback by how well kept the outside of the building and its compound were. It was absolutely breathtaking. I immediately felt the burden I was feeling earlier left. About 30 seconds later, my supervisor and I reached the lobby and found the security guard I was relieving. After a quick exchange, the guard and I toured the building and the entire property, and then he left with the supervisor. But just as he was leaving, he muttered farewell, which felt a bit odd, but I didn't bother to question him. While the exterior of the hotel was extremely beautiful, inside was equally breathtaking, and I couldn't help but admire the intricate architecture. Huge wooden beams spanned the entire lobby that looked impossible to be placed at the height that they were at, but they looked almost magical. There were large paintings that decorated the walls, and that reminded me of a museum, but these were different because it felt like a strong energy was emanating from them. After exploring the building a bit more, I felt a bit dragged from the long walking, so I found a very comfortable looking couch in the lobby and made myself comfortable while I checked out my phone for a while. I was probably browsing around on YouTube. When it was close to midnight, I decided to patrol the compound and then return to the couch. But just as I was about to sit down, I heard a faint knocking sound down the hallway that was behind me. I nervously grabbed my flashlight and pointed it down the hallway because it was poorly lit, but nothing was in sight, so I slowly made my way down there. After making it about halfway down the hallway came the sound again, but this time it was louder because it was right next to me. I was relieved to see that it was just an open window swinging when there was a strong gust of wind. With that, I went back to my couch where I sat counting down the hours. The next 3 hours went on uneventfully, so I settled in couch even more. I'm not sure how much time passed after that when everything changed. Right down the same hallway, I saw a shadow emerging from the dim light, and immediately a shimmer went down my spine. But I gathered myself and called out, "Who is there?" But no answer came back. The figure slowly moved a bit closer, so now I was able to see that it was a man wearing a black coat and a baseball cap. I called out to him, "Sir, you are not allowed to be here. What do you want?" Still no answer came back, but the man stopped and seemed to be fumbling with something in his right coat pocket. I mustered every bit of courage that was in me and ran towards him before he was able to take whatever it was from his coat pocket, but he seemed to realize that my intention was to intercept what he was about to do. He made a dash back down the hallway and disappeared around the nearest corner. I followed him as fast as I could, but when I made the corner he was gone without a trace. Right after that I called both my supervisor and the police and informed them of the situation. It took the police about 25 minutes before they showed up, and they searched the entire hotel thoroughly, but there was no sight of the strange man. But what bothered me the most was that all the entrance doors to the building were well secured, and even the window that was left open was secured with burglar bar, so there was no chance of anyone getting in. Since it was close to 5 a.m. in the morning, when the police conducted the search, 2 of the officers decided to stay until daybreak, just in case the stranger showed up again, but he never did. I ended my shift and went straight home. It felt the world was lifted from my shoulders. Days later, I checked in with my other co-workers that worked at the Dragon Hotel regularly to see if there was any sighting of the man, but no one ever saw him before or after that time. One of my co-workers strangely asked me if I could describe the man I saw, and when I did, a strange grim look took over his face, and then he told me the man I described was the split image of one of the previous owners. He died about a year ago, he finally muttered and walked away. I felt cold instantly. I never went back to the Dragon Hotel to work after that day.